And we really need to look into our mind, why we are here, and this is not to just to learn something new only. This is, I think, more taking our life to learn something in our life, that we can become more serious, because Dharma practice is more like people who is designed for a little bit serious when they become serious in their practice. One time, His Holiness Dalai Lama was asked by one Tibetan children. I was there in Dharamsala. So the boy asked His Holiness if the life is going quite smoothly, and then you are happy, everybody's happy, then do we need to practice Dharma? And then His Holiness looked at the boy, and he gave this kind of serious look to the boy and said, no need. Dharma is for a serious, when you become serious about your life, when you have like kind of determination. So at that moment, then you need to do. It's not to just enjoy life only. We have done this kind of thing many times. We failed. So now we need to become a little bit serious when it comes to Dharma. That's how he said. But then I was feeling like before when he was asked this question, I felt like His Holiness will say something like normally I used to say, like, well, we need to be very careful in this because maybe we are happy, and then sometimes this happiness turn into something else. So that's why we need to learn something from the life. But he didn't. His Holiness was like straightforward on this. So it really helped me. So like this, so we are here. The reason why we are gathering here, because not this person who dressed quite funny, this yellow fellow is giving something, a talk, and then you are here to just listen what he has to say, something different. Not for this reason. This reason would be very, very stupid. I think the better reason will be most of you are, I think, already practicing Buddhism for a long time, and few of you are new, I guess. So it doesn't matter, because we all enjoy the how other people are enjoying the life, and then somehow, even you are young, experienced, or like studied the Dharma for a long time, we have one answer deeply inside: how much we try to achieve happiness, but every time we fail, for sure. Like Shantideva, here it will come saying that we always wanted happiness, but somehow through our ignorance mind, we destroy our own happiness like an enemy. So that we do have some experience. So now with this experience, I think when if you look outside of this room, people driving, going for work, and then somehow they all are just going out there to find a happiness. And now we are here a little bit isolated, physically isolated, but I don't know mentally from mind is isolated or not, which is more difficult. So we are kind of trying to achieve something that the rest of the, like now in America, they're not interested. We are doing something. So which the Shantideva and the great master like His Holiness Dalai Lama has given this opportunity to us and show this path. So we should be very fortunate and we should bring this joy. I'm always saying, in order to continue or enjoy what you're doing, first you need to find joy. Once you find this joy, automatically the effort will come out. Because it's more like a movie. So when you watch a movie, if you find like almost 15, 16, 20 minutes boring, then you don't want to watch the whole movie. But in like 20 or 15 minutes, when you find like very exciting, and then even the power gets off, got off, power switch off, right? And then something like there's some disturbances, then you feel so annoyed. I really want to continue this. So we always have to find this kind of joy. So, and this is the reason I think my teacher, the kind teacher, who designed this, the 50 verses he took from the way of Bodhisattva's life, that it's not directly related to much to Dharma. Right?
So my teacher, my kind teacher, extracted the 50 verses from the way of Bodhisattvas. And these verses, directly applicable to the practitioners as well as to the non-believers. These verses are not depending on the belief or prerequisite of karma or the previous, not karma, the reincarnation or rebirth, but primarily something we can directly apply to our daily life.
Mm-hmm. So now, in 2 days and 6 sessions, right? 6 sessions you are back. 4. Oh. Only 4 sessions. And to cover up all the 50, little bit difficult. But the good news is we don't need to complete it because it won't be on exam. But whatever we study, we should enjoy this. This is the point. Many times what we study that we don't enjoy much, and then we continue studying, and then we don't want to look back to the text again, and even the text is like looking at you. You just go, no. So this shouldn't be like this. So now let's go through this. 전주 토벌 주발라 개대텔라 판바만주는 시디 양다 줘봐 칼라 주르스 디 지제도 건조 찍마 저랑 큐즈질로 하시나.
So the first verse is really to extract the essence of the human birth. So the first verse we have here is the leisures and the endowments are very hard to find. This is in Shantideva's text. Since they are accomplished the purposes of beings, if I do not accomplish benefit upon these, how will I acquire this in the future?
Even though I said it, in order to understand these 50 verses, we don't need to believe in past and future life. But somehow it's related to the past and future life. So this is a little bit tricky because it can also, for practitioners, also can relate this to the past and future life, like this precious human life. If we waste this, then what will happen with the rest of my lives? I don't want to fail. This could be people who believe in future life or have a trust in future lives. But then, to be honest, like a person like myself, I kind of like believe in a future life, but sometimes it brings like because life, we don't know when we will die. That's for sure. Because there's nothing certain. So when I was traveling from one time from Dharamsala to Delhi on the highway, and then my friend, a good friend, he is a very fast driving person. So, and then every time I tell him to slow down, he will listen for maybe for like 5-10 minutes. And here we go. He will just go like, the road is open, should go. And then one time what happened was like, almost we got into big trouble. So then I just give a thought to myself, like, if something happens, and then what will happen? Where is this fear? Why should I have a fear? And then I think like about what up to now, what I have something to lose. Like, okay, Bodhi, I have to leave. And then all this, my attendance and everything, I have to leave for sure one day. And what are the most important thing I will ever regret? So then I just looked into my life, and then I felt like, actually, there's nothing much. Then I felt like, well, all the great masters saying the precious human life is something that when you find something that you feel that these only can bring the happiness, and these only thing can bring the answer to all the suffering, if we lose this, because this is so precious. So if I lose this sort of thing, then I must fear like it. Everybody fear death, but especially this will be the most powerful thing that I will ever feel like I'm not dear to lose this sort of thing. Which at that time, I don't have anything. I go like, I will die as a one regular person, and I don't feel anything extraordinary inside me. So now I feel if I have learned something, I do little practice, I'm so fortunate to have Dharma in my life. And there's so many times some problem or something situation comes, and then I try to handle it very gently. And then there are so many times that I feel like Dharma actually is helping me. So I have this time to time experience. So now I fear the death much more because of I feel like I have something precious to lose. not only the external things, but the internal, the practice which I can feel this many of, like if I go on the street, maybe so many people, so many other sentient beings, which they are not aware of, that I feel something like this I do have. If I lose this, then it's difficult to get it back, isn't it? So this is how even not related to the future life directly, but this is something I feel like. So we can think like this also, or this verse. Tensho deni shindu nyeba ka jibu tunzhu tobra juba la kede dena pamba mandu na chile yangda juba kala juru. Da teni nipa di tenwe tela nyingu ma la na rangi lang lu bas.
디 단단한도 진주 리우 당고네마 비동아 되게 진주 리우 당고네 우주지 봐. 예, 단대 체디 진주 리우 당고되는 거야.
디르샤 당르기 시바드레도 와.
리우 당고들 리우를 봐.
레레레.
그래서 양 콘도들 레벨은 콘도사마 되게 창문도 리우 구브레 삼.
말해. 아니
당고디 리우체.
당고디 리우체 디니시.
리우체 랩샤나.
네네네.
디 양콘도
디레.
So Rinpoche is going through this, not just the 9th chapter, but really from the very first chapter until 9, and extracting some of the most meaningful, most applicable verses that we can use for our practices. So for instance, the first verse, it belongs to the first chapter of the Shantideva's text. Just for your information, I'll keep reminding you which chapter this verse is, if you wanted to go back.
다 되네 대외되는 닝볼라네 랑기 랑기 르바 임바스 말랑나 다다기 딘제 대원예버 주어는 다기 개고 마체는 텔 르바 셴메데 텔레 몽바 셴메 게데 다기 대도나 몽베 치진 지로 치위 주어디 신양의 전부 동을 줄스 다 된다 도도를 쉬고 봐. 다 Now I think I will say this in Tibetan. 제가 다디 직접레레레레 시험하고지 두주원 것이다요 말봐.
그래서
다 배나 대회 때는 인구 말랑나세요. 다들 같이 뭐 쉬버려셔. 인구 써야 돼. 저 아니 지단에다 쉬어마진다. 최마지 수준도 버려야 돼. 얘는 삼로 찍다나 아니 동행 누구 민두스랍도 참배 아니 동행 계획이 규디파가 아니 대화도 얘기 대외 규디 아니 두비하지 마초나 아 동행 누구 민두스랍 참식이 탈답게 매자 저장은 야바도 아니 지게 가서 그래 awareness로 봐 전시 템포지 영향이 된다라 아니 동행이 간데스기도 대화대 간데스 연구도 이 셈이야 공지지 돼야지 다디 송구스래.
So the second verse here belongs to the 4th chapter in the Shantideva's text. If, having found such leisure, I do not familiarize with the virtue, there can be no deception other than this. There can be no confusion other than this. If, having understood this out of confusion, I am indolent afterwards, when it's time to die, tremendous grief will reign in its head. So here, as we talked about in the previous verse, it's really making the most out of our life to use this incredible gift, the human birth, for accomplishing our purposes. But if we don't do that, then the problem is if, for example, if we don't want to make the best out of our life for future, so Rinpoche is teaching us, regardless of your belief and faith, regardless of you believe in Dharma or not, the one thing that we clearly know is that we do not wish suffering. And then if you do not wish for suffering, then you have to learn how to seize the causes that produces the suffering. And then at the same time, try to look at causes that produces happiness that we all want. And in a way to really freeing us from the suffering, from the samsara. Because essentially we all have this common desire to free ourselves from this suffering. And so having a very strong, vigilant, the mindfulness on this, I wanted to free myself from suffering, having this vigilant, mindfulness. And then you start investigating how I can accomplish in producing happiness, looking at the causes and the conditions, so on. At the same time, looking at how I can seize the causes and conditions that constantly produce suffering. And with that, then you can think about the first verse. We talk about taking extracting the essence of the human birth, and then how to do that. This is what we related with the second verses here, belonging to the fourth chapter.
Normally, when we talk about 10 non-virtuous actions, right? And then mostly we feel like if we don't avoid doing these 10 non-virtuous action, and then most people, most in the teaching it says like, and then we go to hell. We end up in doing something wrong thing. But interestingly, the great Atisha in the one of his texts called the precious the garland of Bodhicitta, in there he says practicing the 10 virtuous action and avoiding the 10 non-virtuous action, it gives that the practice of the individual, especially the great master Adisha himself saying that it really kind of boosts up or generates his faith much stronger. That normally we don't hear this sort of thing. And then he says also we can make it more like the confidence level of doing the virtuous things, the faith that we really need to know. Dinar yabanashi, Maranzo Nevardo, Anichi Dibach Chavina, Karsore, any Djibouti Mideva Yungure, Mideva Yon, and Nevardo Nyason Kiago to say, Taran book get the Shema of Che. And Ranshingi Ranigi Tabadam, Ranigi Tabasitu Yanchi, because Sanje Chini Yubi Gab Zulia Tabad Gage Memche, Rangi Rangla Zawatan, Rangi Yuntentelia, any Chigi Nyamcha Rudu Rumen to say de Shoji Damachi. And think about it, some magic shark wedge, the Tonacha wedge.
It's something of a troninalia. The Rangi Yundenja,
No,
the Nyamja Rudu to Daya, Nigo Chu,
or the Taba the Pelgitus. Pelgitus, Sundwa. 제가 대화 펠링도 시도점에
So the Lama teaches this jewel garland of the bodhicitta. He had a very interesting observation of the practicing the 10 virtues, abandoning the or negative deed and so on. And he, his insight leads us to say that when you engage in the practice of the 10 virtuous deed, when you engage in the cessation of the non-virtuous deed, and as you practice that, interestingly, it's really kind of gives you and boosts your confidence in Dharma, boosts your confidence in your own ability to do such things. So you start really having a very strong faith in the teaching and in your practices as well, and that's self-confidence and many other good qualities comes out of it. by engaging in this practice of the virtuous and non-virtuous, abandonment of the non-virtuous.
Rinpoche, could you talk a bit about the word virtue, the Tibetan word virtue? I sometimes feel like when I hear it in English, it almost sounds like a cliche.
Okay.
And so people don't really know what they're supposed to be doing, or they don't think it really applies to them.
Yeah, what's it? What?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. That hasn't been kind of problem for me because I came from the background of Buddhist family, and then we are just saying like gewa, the married. That's how we just. So now here it will be confusing from the background of Christianity, and then in Tibetan, and there. gewe 남주친이 가르쳐도. right? That's a good question.
동행이 가서를 대교가야.
That's interesting. First, I give you my own theory on that, okay? And then later I will check here. gewa sidu zembe da dewa gebar chegi and simgi samutangchi. And till simgi samutangchi. Simgi samutangchi tell a dene and the jigi jubu dewa yongyagi tabledus droyadi ani gyas. Ani semla samatangcho jigi di dungin jegi julman roya samalo mingyos. The ditch shabeda ko broad silbe ko jachesa to samtambina.
So when we look at the Tibetan term gewa, translated as a virtue, when you look broadly, not really technically, but looking very broadly, this, very concept gewa has an element of inspiration for growing happiness, generating happiness. And this, attitude, or primarily, this the way of thinking, which really engage in causes that produces happiness. And also it has this method approach. And thus, gewa is, has the method approach of producing happiness. Well, it's have a, philosophical attitude engaging in something which is a positive. So that's broadly defining. And then if you look at the non-virtuous, the migewa, again, is a mental engagement in which, brings, consequences and produces the conditions and causes for suffering. So I'm defining this broadly. I have a question for Annie. I also have the same virtue, but as a really excellent and expert scholar and translator, what alternative words that we can use for gewa, for virtue in English that's more accessible to the public?
I'm not sure because I feel like it's so easy to pick a word that sounds right, but it's almost like you have to redefine it again. Because a lot of times I feel like in Western culture, the word virtue is people would almost denigrate it because they think you're being goody two shoes or whatever.
For your
I have used virtue, or I've heard some people saying merit, but I really think that the fact that you're looking for happiness with this word, I don't necessarily feel that that's contained within the word virtue.
I see.
Because it comes from, I think the Latin root is from the word man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like to use the word beneficial.
Okay. Beneficial.
Yeah,
Mhm.
as opposed to harmful.
Monk.
Dibudila. Dibudil kiji shegura mato. Kadu yang pena kutseba shurba. Ani kibuji yang chedu. Ani dindigi samotangba digi dine kibu chungba slavena. Ani samlo nyamba dinde tangche. Samlo duwa tangche yang dibu kadu nega dewa deya dinde yungurba. Dazo ko tiki dribuski kiji shigmarwa. Ko jen dinde cheche nega koli dribu trebrede na mingi dribu ko di chunga maris. Da na mingi dribu yang samu tangsa chigore.
That's right. So when we engage in this kind of word, virtues, non-virtues, the one thing that we really care most is the consequences of this thinking and action. Because the consequences, especially, the long-term consequences. If you just merely focus on a temporary consequences, a certain way of thinking produce immediate pleasure, but then in long term, it has a negative effect on us. So here, when you think about these virtues or Gila, think about what will be the long-term consequences and the conditions from these, including, the subsequent actions as well.
Yeah.
So the word sonam, gewa. So gewa maybe leads to sonam, the positive, the virtue lead to merit.
The Gyawa is kind of the motivation, how the mind we think, set up the motivation, a way of doing things, and then the Jibudila, the consequences is recognized as the sonam.
In that way, I think that virtue then virtue seems like a pretty suitable word because I was thinking the word beneficial, which sounds very general to me. It's more directed at behavior
Yeah.
rather than a generalized thing. Sometimes I feel like some of the words make you get away with not doing.
Yeah. That's
In some other settings, I heard like 10 parami. It's like it's because I also heard a number 10 virtues. What that relationship with the parami, is that like a renunciation? I don't know. You're familiar with that concept? It's like 10 different thing like you developing in order to achieving some happiness, or I don't know if this virtue this virtue is in that relationship, like you want to be generous or renunciation, like there are 10 different categories. So I want to know the virtue, what's the 10 virtue, what that means, so I have better understanding in relationship with parami, because I heard other tradition, Buddhist tradition, they talking about collecting or developing parami. I don't. Is that
no. Hello, top Judah. Oh. I don't know. I never thought of like this way, and not much study on that. Top Judah. Correct. Mingyou Gyawa Judy. Okay. Topji kharis jarum ko ummi shin. Tai ko namsha jundu 장가를 리시에스 걸베.
No.
알릴릴리. 답변나 안가란주 류리 차샤비나 아니 또또 류기 차단시고 맵체. 심 머rum비 온도 롤 때 머rum아 온도 sombo 텔레 때니 아니 류기 아니 지게 소제바. 되네 가서 그래 아니 다 죽고 맞아봐. 난 가르고 지그리 다 미잔주를 초말로 다 배낭을 만체 되나로 들어봐. 다 메야차도 선배 로엠 디 룰숨 아니 디 송샤.
So yes, this the 10 the categories of the non-virtues. The first one is really to do with our physical body, in which taking others' life or killing. Then second is the stealing, and the third is engaging on wrongful sexual conduct for lay people. So these are the three social mechanisms. Sorry. Yes,
Yeah,
not
not virtues. 또 배낭을 샤샤비나 아니 또 말에 또 당보 류지 당할래 지금 할래시 당한 좀 손에 당보 디숨디 때문에 양량도 제기 내가 말해 다 오토비가블라 디숨데 레고요 봐 답변나 나디 내가 차슈리 다디 양내 양도 당한 좀 니만 찍나로라디 시디다 거르자고 있으래 이제 잠배 나려야 퇴바직 차체 디나로려야 아니 가란 줄 빼나 주 아니 참아 아니 직접 아치를세 디 아치를디 샤고야 디다 아주 개와 주부인 신경이 삼로 여디니지라 땅 아치를딜 자고 도마토나 안다 투주 망쇼 돌아다니디 디차드비스레.
So for the first, the non-virtues in relationship with our physical body, the main thing is with these negative afflictions, or the negative afflictions leading to these actions. So behind all these non-virtuous action, if you like, there is the causes preceding to that. That's really primarily to do with our mind, the wrongful concept that leads to this action. And then also Rinpoche pointed out that for the three non-virtuous deed in connection with the body is these three are so obvious, and they're extraordinary action that most of us naturally would prevent ourselves engaging into this, like killing or stealing or all that. Usually we tend to avoid it in ordinary life. But then what we have to be is incredibly mindful for the next four non-virtuous deed in connection with our speech, in which the first one is not telling the truth or lying. Then the second one is fickle, right? Divisive speech.
Divisive.
And then the third one is a harsh, like a word or using this harmful speech. And then the fourth is like gossiping. And these, I think we have to be more mindful, because they, easily simmer or penetrate our life, and we constantly, if we're not mindful, only fall into this wrongful action.
So it doesn't, in these 10 non-virtuous action, we time to time lie up a little bit, just small lie we do, right? A little bit. But in here, it means like a kind of quite a big lie, saying even you are not fully enlightened, saying I'm fully enlightened, I have this vision. And in order to gain something from like fame, and then also money, power, then in order to do this, this is very dangerous. And then also people like me, that's what His Holiness always points like to people who is having the throne or some kind of title, or when they gain a respect and they wanted to have more and more. And then they will say like, I had a vision yesterday that you are a very gifted in the past, we have some connection, and somehow you wanted to get something from that person. So it's very I think very harmful, very harmful. So this sort of lie, and then tama, and then that deceiving divisive speech is more like a community which is very beneficial to others. And in this community, if you try to use your personal problem and then bring this into kind of community and then breaks this community, that's the one kind of the how it is recognized divisive speech. The tama and the more that is, I think in order to upset some people, purposely you use some kind of a harsh words to I think sometimes harsh word is much more painful, and then beating, you do it, maybe a bruise or something and happens, you can still be friends after maybe you are kind of physically recovered, but somehow you can forgive. But harsh words somehow stays here forever, and then you always think of that person, it always comes this into your mind. So harsh word is, I experienced this many times. And then such a great practice, then every time I invite that my enemy with these harsh words, and then I try to look into these harsh words. Where should I cling? Why should I cling? What is the point of this cling? This shows some kind of the weakness which I have, that I need to be strong inside. So I have this kind of a problem also. So trying to be strong with the help of Dharma, of course, but this kind of leaves very strong imprint within us. So it's sometimes very hard to recover. Then gossiping. You all love gossiping. So if we say we meet for coffee, that means like that means something, not the coffee. It has something to do. Let's enjoy talking about others. But when we gossip, we don't gossip something good about people. Saying like, what? He got this realization? Wow, how did he got it? Not this kind of gossip. It's more like, oh, this person and that thing, so bad. So it weakens somehow if we try to check our way, how our practice is going. It really has a strong impact on us, that how it weakens our practice. So for instance, you might think you hear so many gossip of others, and then you just going, okay, gossip is gossip. Okay, now done. And then next day or tomorrow, when you look at this person, your way of looking at that person is totally different now. And you will be seeing from his dark side. And then this is how you will recognize whom you have gossiped. And then it's really hard. In the future, if you say, somebody says, oh, he's very good, then you deep inside, you will believe yourself is already so bad. And then there, even 1,000 people came that they praising about him. Even one strong kind of gossip, it stays here. This is much stronger. Yes.
Question from chat.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Sure, we can take one question, then have a break at 11:30. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Wow.
The question is, how does having a good heart relate to the definition of virtue? From Jampa Champal.
This two give what same time with the give on you this.
샘상보다 개와스도 잠배 고 로아이 제야세 유주마레 쭉 샘바디 들제 샘바디 들세도 잠배 샘디 테임 챕게 저러봐 득비에 촐 가서 민계에 촐 파마당 같이 개외 촐 파땅 바타가랑 개와 차로 봐 디개와 인도 잠배 될 때니 이 중백에 다 지게 대화 소화 대화 아니 샘나로래 샘바 구양으로 땅야 드조 상물로 다 소남기
So good heart and the virtues, they're not like separable. They're not separable because primarily when we talk about the virtues or good heart, we are talking about a set of a mind which is peaceful, tamed, and which really kind of naturally focuses on the virtuous side rather than on the non-virtuous. And as you engage in virtues, you're also engaging in practice of kindness and good heart and so on, and which really leading to happiness or causes and conditions for happiness, which also generate merit. So they're, like not something cause and effect relationship. They're also not separate.
So we are taking a break now?
Sure.
Okay.
10 minutes break.
Okay, 10 minutes break.
So we will be back at 11:35 or 36.
All right. No, I know this code. I know. I think the gossip. We really need to bring awareness, but I'm not saying don't gossip anymore. We should gossip. It's so good because this is how we communicate. This is how we sit down and then enjoy our coffee, and then we need to talk about something. But we really need to check our mind when we gossip. Maybe we are getting judging so fastly and then making decisions so fast. But that somehow we really need to, like my great teacher, he will always some questions like what's happening with that person. He always love to ask so many questions, which is not other than, well, it's merely kind of a gossip. But then he will always make a kind of a conclusion saying, okay, this could be right, this could be wrong, doesn't matter. But the more important is that we, it proves that we don't like this action. So we shouldn't do like this. But we cannot judge the person. Maybe his own follower will say like, oh, he's so good. And then their enemy always says bad about Buddha also. So we should always stay in the middle so that it is so good for yourself, because then when you need to get some good quality from that person, it will be much better for the future to get this. So we should be very careful. every time after the gossip, my teacher comes to this conclusion. So that means he knows how to gossip. Okay. 다때네 들어봐 가서 그래 얘기 다 얘기도 또 저녁 잘지 일이 가려고 당주 남주 록다 낙심 nø심 록다 다 낙심 낙심다 다 nø심체 록다체 다 뜻도 담아도 다 지단에 가서 그래 그냥 베나다 디나로네 낙심디 지그레 다 nø심제 다도 도즈 지기 네 친구 제대로 삼바 아니 다 록다 좀 샤샤베나 당아조 베나 아주 미 시간 나로야 타 조고 싶지게 되어래 시가디 kum시디 다 드조딩이야 타 제보다 야고래데 이내 뭐 니주도 퉁구 민두 삼로디 야고지 마담 체체 남상고라 아니 레준디 베나도 차샤베나 켈렌데스 카고도 주요때 이내 레준디 요 마르스 남상 타제 샤베나 양 소소를 틸tembe 양 레준디 요 마르스 남나 캡상라는 지고 할때 경험하고 싶으시라 그래 가르치는스나 레준디 매베이나 안다 가르치지 손로비지 통용도가 미기 시간으로 어떤데를 소베다 양가 돈베체도 양코 록다드죠 양 점순치에도 다 도송고 있어야다.
So the next non-virtuous relating to our mind primarily. The first one is napsim, the covetous mind. And then the next one is a harmful or malicious mind, and then the wrong view. So when you look at this tree, compared to the first two, the physical and speech related, this is much more serious because it's much more kind of profound consequences for, especially from the third one, the wrong view. So of course, covetous mind, the harmful mind, they're, profound, but the wrong view is even more so. This is because when people are making a decision, they tend to be sometimes very decisive, saying, oh, there's no karma, don't worry about it. So decisive, yes, there's a benefit for doing that. It's easy, it's decisive in nature, but at the same time, also there's a long-term negative consequences for such, taking decisive without any investigation. So this is something we really need to revisit.
다냥의 친구 동물 주루스 다 대회 때가 다다니네 아니 닝불랑고 그랬다 다 텐션 숨바티 강조비네 인생 되버 예 매버 세대 다도 교조신 네버 근에 오면은 다다 치워 미조시 이데미론 다 들이샤 대회 때라야 다 닝불랑 꾸여기 답에 망부주의에 다 심슈게다 망부주의에 나로네 다 미다바데 아니 삼로야고 지 코르토비나 아니 테네 지 가서래 땅에 뭐시고나 내가 제대 차고 그래 내가 제 망부지도 아니 다 내가 셔bat 망제 제 차야 세계면도 무이는 무서 차야 세계면도 명로지네 콜이야 지금 타투야 세계면도 다 이나양 지게 가서 그래 레게 나는데 인부러버버디 섬로치 땅베이나 다 묘몽께야디 묘로 땅야지다 묘몽 고야게 탑다디 소우르지 제토베이나 아니 내가 묘몽 마제베기 아니 지 캡상 아니 라바로 도양 묘몽 땐도 제베 아니 지게 자와게 라와주여나 다 딜을 하다지 땅아서 지게 루비아 매딩이 손럽진 되잖아요. 아니 미다보게 섬로텔 땐체 아니 미다비 꿀마식래 미다비 꿀마텔 때네 아니 아주다 지게 가서 그래 남주 purpose of my life 지네 지스그러방 하죠. 다 뒤에니 아주 무슨 다 샴바카케 다 뇽모뇽으로 당야지 차단용으로 당야지 내가 인 섬도 총비나 뒤다 전주 선배의 죄배 나로나 통고 고주서를 드린사요.
So when we look at the third verse, basically it's taking essence of this support for leisure right now. It says remaining neither day nor night. This life is always slipping by and never lengthening. Why will death not come to one like me? So here, basically now teaching us when we talk about how important the human birth is, how useful is it, and then now we have to take the essence out of it. And then he's saying, how can we take the essence? What are the steps that we can use for this? Rinpoche is saying, meditation on impermanence, the nature of the impermanence is very important. We have so many tasks to do. We have so many projects to do. They're ceaseless. When you wanted to saving money, generating financial wealth and so on, and also creating a brand or fame for yourself. And these are something that you cannot really end, the endless things that you have to do, and this is something you cannot accomplish this entire life. And also we question about the values and essence. But then if you really wanted to look at the something that you can do most meaningful for this life, most impactful in terms of your future consequences, I'm really engaging to reduce afflictions and to abandon affliction. This kind of a project task will be really valuable. Because especially when you see it through your investigation, when you gain this confidence that affliction is something we can eradicate, when you gain that confidence, when there's hope that we can actually get rid of affliction from our mind stream. And once we know that we can, and once we are really convinced of that, then there's no more meaningful than really engaging in that project. And that will be very meaningful. So here they're saying, reminding the nature of the impermanence, really inspiring us to engage in most meaningful life or action. So there's the purpose of the mind is really focusing on reducing afflictions, reducing the attachment and the anger and so on. And this is what in the Shantideva's text as one of the far most important action or the meditation or practice one has to engage.
So now I think it is very necessary for a practitioner first make kind of a imagination, right? Imagination, right? Visualization or this search kind of a delay to shipena susu desajigang deche tapena zambuling din nalo le ya ni jibu yongye tap dram mera yorba so ta jigi benjo tone yenare da kare tonere ani samlos tangje de jibu yongye ge tablam mangboju chebe ina yang tamadelya deba tsimbaji de jibu shibuji do seyade ta halam meding sunu chire right the imagination sit lam ju wer bet karso imagine so I think yeah projection may bring a kind of projection that like you being a very successful man, but people label you as a very successful man, like a thing like you are a billionaire. Okay, well, most people wants to become billionaire. Then what? Oh, billionaire has its own kind of a luxury problem. Like there is my friend Sunyi Rinpoche once said, many people, the people who are not rich, they think like people who are staying in a 5-star, like millionaire, billionaire, they think they don't have a problem. They're so happy, but they forgot they have 5-star problem. So that's good one, isn't it? Yeah, so which is like they eat so delicious food. They can taste it. They don't appreciate. They don't feel it. But if you give a money to a poor person who really wants to go to the 5-star and eats very delicious food, just going there, each step, he will start appreciating. And then, and I take a picture. This is once a lifetime. He takes a picture and upload and share. Oh, happiness is there, so happiness. But the like a rich business people like who always stay in 5-star, he does not have any this kind of happiness. So that is a very kind of a strong teaching from the sentient beings to us. How much you go further to this side, then somehow they are looking towards somewhere like I sometimes think like in India, we have this richest businessman called Ambani, and maybe his kids maybe are looking down to the people when there is slums down there, and these children are enjoying without any kind of luxurious toys. They have some are like, I don't know, some garbages they were playing with so much laughter, stress-free, no kind of high expectation, no responsibility, just enjoy the life. Maybe their children may be looking down there saying, wish I can be this kind of people. So it's life is full of a lesson. So that we have to come like, even though we become like a kind of a no kind of suffering, like when becoming like a deity or God, then somehow like my predecessor one time, he said somebody invited him to be on the Eiffel Tower. Somebody invited, and then he said, no, what's the point? Just going up, then you have to come back again, come down. Kind of a good teaching there. So it's similar, but now what we have to look for is, even you have like become a billionaire, even you don't have any money in your pocket, but how can you be happy? That is what we should be looking. So somehow it is mindset. This is how we need to train ourselves. So then, of course, I'm not saying we should be living like two extremes of way of life, but any kind of a situation it comes, we need to settle down there, and that you are the most happiest person. So that's the gift. Like you are a billionaire and then you got bankrupt, and then you don't want to end on the street. But there will be some kind of Bodhisattva, a great practitioner, like he's there down there smiling and helping other the street people, helping them gladly. So similarly, we need this kind of power. But somehow this, I think,
someone who is looking down on other things.
This is like people normally where they are so kind of Eh?
Condescending.
Not kind,
Condescending.
condescending. Condescending is correct.
Look down on people.
No, it's not more like looking down people. It's more like you live on a life that who some people say you are so good, and then you are just
It's
feeling
like
like,
a ostentation.
Privilege, like life of created.
hmm,
Usually there's in English, there's someone's van, yeah.
Vain.
Indian number in the van.
vain silver.
Always wanted to hear the good things.
Yes,
Feeling that you're more important, more
You-
so than others.
Yeah,
not rather
you-
mingle with the ordinary people.
your way of living life is more like you will bring a concern about what other people will think about me. It's not how you should think. It's more like you have given your remote control to somebody else.
Yes.
And then somebody changes the channel, and then you just act according to that. So this is how, even in this big country like America, many like people are having this sort of problem. But sometimes in India, in the street, they don't have much on this. They don't care. Even there's so many bad things we say to other. They just go like, okay, we know what you're gonna say next. So they're so ready. So I got sometimes think their mind is maybe not powerful. They already become like so solid. So whatever you say something, they are not going to take it too personal. So so I'm thinking this how we have to search for a practice to bring happiness to yourself. That first you need to have this the projection of the life, that how our mindset is designed, and what are the so many when we say we are under the sway of the negative emotions, we really need to see this picture. But many of us, what we do is we kind of say like, yes, we are under the sway of the negative emotions, but we don't feel it. So once you don't feel it, whatever you say, you are just kind of like copycat. Like you are saying it like by the force of your master or your friends, then somehow your practice becomes so dry. So this is necessary. So the great, because now I have to bring some from the more important from down to here, because we don't have much time to cover everything. The great Shantideva said, there are two ways of researching emptiness these days. So that's how he goes on, kind of in the clear word by the Shantideva. So he said, one is more like without much control, concern, and connecting to your own feeling, and then you just wanted to see how things function. How does where is this kind of a truly existence? Then like saying like, where is the I? And then your body is not I, and the mind is not I, and then you just like, there's no I, but there's no feeling. This is how one type of research. And then he says we shouldn't find this kind of this could be an example to approach towards emptiness, but then he said we should find how the yogi did his investigation to find the emptiness. So that yogi's way of finding the emptiness or the selflessness is not other than how you connect this particular suffering that once we have this kind of suffering, like this suffering, which unwanted, nobody wants suffering. This suffering started from this negative emotion, for sure, 100%. And this negative emotion, how it started is not other than the self-grasping. Then once you feel like through this self-grasping, 100%, how all this negative emotion comes from this self-grasping, this negative emotion. Between this, we can have this so
Misgiving thoughts or misinformed or
misinformed thoughts, or just
thoughts.
not a delusion.
Not
To remember.
Okay.
So basically, you comprehend the things wrongly, and with this kind of a thoughts, you carry on actions.
Mm.
To remember that.
출담
So although you're talking on the same subject, but there's so much kind of exaggeration that you put on the understanding.
exaggeration, more exaggeration, because exaggeration is there because that which you are going to exaggerate is that you already grasped towards it. Then your mind becomes so narrow. That means if you wanted to see only good in this, then you exaggerate. Oh, so good, so good, so good, so good. Like if you are falling in love on someone and somebody says you should be careful with that person, then automatically you are the first person to become so angry to your friend, saying, how dare you can talk this to my precious one. This not only just in the people who are in a relationship, but like a guru devotion. It's sometimes we don't know whether it's a devotion or attachment. It's mixed up. So it's very difficult to kind of not to mix this, because how it become mixed is not other than if you have the ignorance mind already there, then exaggeration, how it becomes, it's very difficult to see. So in order to not to bring this kind of too much exaggeration, then it is necessary to have no grasping towards this kind of self or the phenomena towards that. That's very necessary. So so the great Chandrakirti says that when if you can make a link towards this suffering has 100% is from this this sort of exaggeration mind, and then this comes from this ignorance mind. Then when that the yogi or yogini, it's on the it's down there on the board there. So yogi and yogini, when they kind of find that self-grasping is a mistaken mind, it is just a delusion, but and then automatically it becomes a very good news. This becomes a hope for the yogi, because then he feels all this suffering comes from this. Now, if I could understand or get liberated from this ignorance, then that means I can get a liberation from that. So then becomes the so good news. So when you meditate on an emptiness, there's not much fear now left. There's more kind of like confidence, and it becomes a joy. And this is the very goosebumps and the tears can be there at this point of time, because actually the yogis are so wanted to hear this kind of thing. So do you feel it? Like 제장가 가란소 녀몽기 답변 가서래 셈모튜브 자는 야타바 타지 최체 아니 녀몽들이 제주주요래 세 삼로 되게 삼로지 레원도 잠배 아니 라와사바치 딜레원도 잠배 아니 제장가 탄다 우못 식세기 나로라야 ninjobe게 다는 거버체 세기 다단다 ninjobe게 다 고단디 딘디질레비나 아니 랑싱기 란즈 미지디나로야 다 닝부 카르샤슬라나 미지낭 닝부디 카르샤슬라나 마 동헬 타블체디 닝부인스 랍토세레스.
So when we look at the affliction, and especially the affliction that we are for now not able to tame or eradicate, and then on the other hand, when you investigate and you realize that afflictions can be removed, it's just a stain. You can remove affliction, and when you come to that conclusion, there's a new hope. The new hope that, wow, I can actually cut down the root of the affliction that causes all the suffering. And therefore, in Chandikirti's, the Madhyamaka, the commentary on the clear word, he said the yogis realized that through ceasing or negating the self, one's able to remove the suffering. Because this suffering is connected with the misgiving information about, the self, and as a result, you're producing all these negative actions through the negative emotion. But once you realize that these afflictions can be removed, then this is really excitement, and that should become the essence of our life. It should be the most meaningful engagement that we should carry out to extract the essence of the life.
So I think for this reason, Buddha, when he taught Four Noble Truths, when the first truth, he said, know the suffering. So what does that mean, know the suffering? So it is not other than you have to connect all the suffering to this ignorance mind, and then once you feel the taste, all this 100%, even you can say this unwanted thing has started from this, like a cause and effect. This suffering comes from this way of thinking, this negative emotion. That negative emotion comes from this grasping. 100% sure. When you come to realize this, in order to understand that, you don't need to become a Arya, you don't need to be on the path. That if you put a little effort, you can feel it. So once you have this kind of feeling, and then you will look for like, what is the antidote? Then what we have become expert is know the suffering. We become expert on that. So then right after to search for the truth, or the then automatically we will ask for what is the cause of the suffering. But if we haven't done any kind of research out how it's linked from this to the ignorance mind, and then there is no way we will ask this question, how does this cause of suffering becomes? And then what will be, there will be no question is there cessation? And then if we cannot talk about this, if there's a cessation or not, then the door is closed for the path. So that is necessary. I think, like in the time to time when we do our commitments or practice, we have so many practices to do. But then His Holiness always say that recently when he was giving a teaching, he said, I have like many commitments. I took lots of initiations. I have so many commitments of Tantra, but mostly I spend my time doing an investigation. And then he said, on my table, there is one book that's not other than the Entry into the Middle Way. He's saying this. And then he's sharing this to each and everybody. And then most of us, we feel like he's saying this, yeah, maybe His Holiness is still studying. Oh, but this is not the message he wants to give, I think. This is saying that like people like us, we somehow do so many practices, but we are not getting the taste of the practice, which is the essence, the profoundness of the teaching is once you come to know the suffering, that means how you can connect to this, to the ignorance mind, then automatically you will feel like, so up to now, I will never take a refuge in the ignorance mind. That means you have taken a refuge to the Dharma. So normally what we do is we take a refuge in Dharma and Buddha and the Sangha, but then it's mostly what we do as like a tradition. How other people are doing it, we do it, and then we call, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a practitioner. But there's a one big thing missing in so-called we are practitioner. That's not other than you still are seeking the shelter or the refuge under the sway of this ignorance mind. So you have this, and then the greatest question is why you are taking refuge. Because you have your host, you have this your own thing that it's beginningless. You've been with this, and so you are still continuing your life with that. So why you need a shelter or a refuge? So that I think we really need to ask ourselves. For that, we should put all our effort that all these negative emotions, how it is linked to the self-grasping. And then what you can say that the Buddha himself said, I could give lots of teachings, but without the great compassion, I always has to come to the point where to show the antidote to how to get rid from the suffering. 아니 단다 디나로야 람순 넘숨기나 차샤비나 아니 단다 in the three principal aspects of the path, I think this is the one. So the session meeting the teaching the path first for 어디 면로 proceeding to listen said. Second, I think the second verse, those who are not attached to the pleasures of the circling samsara, who strike to make a freedom and the endowments meaningful, who interest themselves to the path, placing the victorious ones, the fortunate ones, listen with a calm mind. 제가 단다 디나로 디중 뭐가 가져. 지준 라마남라 찾으러 제외 송럽 당부드리샤. 제외 송럽군이 인교도 제서 담반 남긴 아가 깬된 털되는 게 중원데 대라년도 두고 진실로 없어. 제가 산지기 쭉 상말로 막 되지 송사되게 막 밥나 아니 가와가는 밥그릇 쓰죠 전에 제외 송럽군이 인교도 깬된 털되는 게 중원데 다 조디 아니 뉴몬 제백이 뉴몬을 제백이 아니 취해가는 막 밥이 오르스 재산가 상지 좀 된 뒤게 송간대지네 동번이 맞으면 지게 메스 타제 도르스 그 송도가
Actually, in the Rinpoche says the first verses of the three principal aspects of the path, and in which in the I think the second, third verse is saying the essence of the life is really to extract the most important thing, which is to attain liberation through abandoning affliction. So, what is the essence of the life for practitioners? It's really free oneself from the samsara, detach oneself from the cycle, the vicious cycle of samsara, and you do that through abandoning affliction. And for that reason, all the teachings, all the major teachings of a Buddha, they always contain about the emptiness. They always contain about the teaching of the Dharma of emptiness, because the soul principle of the practitioner is really free from the samsara.
Now, 제가 that 동반이 맞된바. There's no teaching. We need to keep this in our mind. There is no teaching of the Buddha that does not show emptiness directly or indirectly. My kind teacher, he will say this in class. I can still see his his manner when he was giving teaching. He says, if the Buddha raised his hand like this, then somebody will his student will come forward and then make a prostration, and with the folded hand, they will say like, what is the reason why you raise your hand? And then he start laughing, then somebody will come, then he say like, why did you laugh? Then the teaching starts. This is how most of the sutra, if you look into this is something like that. It's not like we need to study a lot, we need to investigate a lot. It's not like this. Buddha will just give a very relaxed teaching, I call. So it is somehow we look at all of the Buddha's teaching in the sutra. You look one at the end, there is one thing that he will point out that can be the hint to get the enlightenment or the liberation. But then emptiness can be very confusing. It is so popular, and then there are so many commentaries on the emptiness. There are lots of thousands and thousands of books on emptiness. Whether how you recognize Dzogchen or Chagya Chenpo, somehow there are lots of explanation on that. So now, how not to get confused? This is very necessary. So, first of all, my tip for you all will be, you should do the practice of the emptiness or any kind of practice without attachment. Once you bring an attachment, and then you start thinking like, this is my religion, this is my way of studying, somehow you feel like you are doing this practice for your own good, but deep inside you have laid the foundation of this attachment there. And then sometimes, many times, most like 99%, it comes like not really helpful. So it is necessary for us to study, practice. Whatever you study, you bring this into practice. Whatever you bring this into practice, you bring this in your meditation. So doing this, you first need to check, am I doing with the attachment or not? So then once you have this question, and then you will check this emptiness was how you learned, heard. So whatever you are doing this practice, somehow it will the strengthen or the expand the mind. That's why when we talk about a bodhicitta, and on the conventional level, we talk about all the sentient beings get out of suffering, and then I take the full responsibility to help each and every being. Yes, but then there's always one side of the bodhicitta. It's not other than the ultimate bodhicitta, which really strengthens the conventional bodhicitta. That is so strong, because when you wanted to work for the whole sentient being, or you wanted to get out of the suffering, then time to time, what makes you much stronger is not other than the ultimate bodhicitta. Because I think the sometimes it's really hard to recognize when you have a clinging attachment. It's really hard to recognize this, because it can be very cunning sirve. So it is really necessary. Have you chosen this religion? Have you chosen this kind of practice out of your attachment, or from your pure faith? Also, we can say felt so necessary, so needed. And then be careful. In the West, time to time I meet people saying, I felt it's so right for me. There are some great visions are there, because you felt so connected from the past. But time to time, we need to check whether this vision, this kind of a feeling that you feel this kind of energy from that. It's okay to start with something, but time to time, we need to check with this. But most people, when you feel like it felt so special to me, then you just listen completely, kind of become so blind into your own feeling. So also you, and on on one hand, you already accepted your mind is already diluted. And then you, like 100% you believe your mind. That will be not a healthy decision. So even I have some kind of a special feeling, or sometimes I feel so close, but I feel like this is a good start, but I need to be checked with my mind again and again. This is necessary. So we need to do little research on the emptiness. That design of the emptiness is something to bring down the negative emotions, and it has to have the power to dissolve your grasping like that. That you don't need to, I think, wait for to the you don't need to become quite a highly realized practitioner. That you need to see something. This is really happening with you. Did you raise your hand?
Yes.
Okay.
Please keep the microphone closer to
Mm.
the people.
Rinpoche, one question for someone that is a layperson, like a beginner for me. And there's, like you said, thousands and thousands of books on emptiness. If you said, what should our practice be like, reading a verse and then doing analytical meditation? How do we really analyze and really reflect on to understand emptiness?
The way how you have to start is, I think it will be very good if you start with how yogi's way of finding emptiness. That keep this in your mind. And then secondly, I think it is necessary to think that it is kind of easy to when you try to bring down this truly existence from its own. You can see that. That's I. You feel like when there is like a when you are under the sway of attachment or anger, you feel there's so much solid I. That's you feel inherently existence. Don't you feel it? That's somehow down there. But then when you are on at the time of the peak of the anger, then you cannot handle this situation, but you are more little bit calm after whatever the incident happened. And then it is very necessary to look back into the situation and then see like, how did that just come up? Maybe somebody said bad things to you. And if somebody says bad things to me, somebody said bad thing to me a while ago, that kind of emotion didn't come up like that. But with this person, it automatically come like this. Did you need to investigate a little bit? As Lama Tsongkhapa said in the Lamrim Chemo Stages of Path, that in there it very clearly said, analytical meditation is so necessarily important in order to bring the shamatha, because for like in the lay people's life, you're not a practitioner, but then if somebody asks you to like bring anchor towards the enemy right now, nobody can do that. And if he has so much collected information already, then one kind of a spark can be light on this, emotions and then become so strong. So like this, so if we can have collect so much information, which is from we do it get it from the analytical meditation, and then it becomes a source or a kind of a contribution to the single pointed meditation. So then the clarity and then the sechada marchalas karsigina
Vigilant.
but mind becomes very strong. So then for the when you can once you can kind of take down this solid I, but then somehow you feel like kind of like there's nothing to grasp. But then somehow way of meditating on emptiness, we feel like, is that it? This is emptiness? But that's not complete. It is so incomplete because then why should I practice like this? Why should I be like, although the enemy, no enemy? What does that mean? That is so incomplete. So that is necessary that we need to see right after the emptiness, that emptiness has to have a strong kind of a 재상가 똥배기 고하들 때네 아니 디주 가서 그래 functioning sekore 다 최된 디주 참아 용초구 여지 얘라 용초구 여지 세로 통해야지 단단 아주 세미나로 narrow minded 세버디 가르도서나 알디 가르치는 용고 그래서 배 삼로 부수도 보디 용초 그랬어 아니 디 도시 마시베 온게 알레 도시 중소 파종알레 용초 그래 아니 도시 류점베 동번이 통합에 쉬고라야 다 띵중세 삼로 디기 가르리도 슬랍나 삼로 공야로 따야디 주텔레테니 주부디 키 초그레스 지단 디 네버디 여베 인상 재상가 제르무치게 동바 통합에 쉬고라 아니 좀 된텔레 투모모이 비 체조디 가르도슬랍나 아니 동바 송섭에 쉬고 띵중도 송샤스 띵중 송바디 답에 동바 심바다 만다와디 레샤 송마도 지게 동바니 송모 잠시게 아니 또 가서 그래 동바 쉬우지 레샤스게 송모도 봐 단다 땡땡되베 나와라.
So when we contemplate about emptiness, and as we gain better understanding about emptiness, and then you start realizing that dependent arising. Through profound understanding about emptiness, you start appreciating the appearances, you start appreciating the conventional functions of the things. And that's really very important, and also it's a unique quality of proper understanding about emptiness. And as Lama Tsongkhapa in his The Press of the Dependent Arising, saying that Lama Tsongkhapa was praising Buddha's unique approach in the teaching, is that Buddha not merely talks about the emptiness, that's unique, but that is not all. But the most the unique the quality about the Buddha's teaching is that he really appreciates the dependent arising. And the dependent arising is connection to the emptiness. And really this excellent explanation about the dependent arising, that really leads to a deeper understanding about emptiness. That when you really realize emptiness, at the same time you appreciate the dependent arising, and they're kind of linked to each other. And that's the Lama Tsongkhapa saying Buddha is a very unique teacher for appreciating and clearly expanding this relationship between dependent arising and emptiness. So for us, when we meditate on emptiness, and as we do so, And when we start really appreciating the conventional functions, then I think your proper understanding about emptiness is correct. Then sometimes you say, why this is happening to me? Me, why, but to really understand emptiness and then understanding, the dependent, appreciating the dependent arising, then saying, well, this happens to me, it will happen to others because it's pretty much same principle. If you're not like unique, but we're in kind of this principle in which if this, applies to me, it would apply to others. So that's an important way of analyzing.
Mhm. So it is so powerful, this practice, because once person feels whenever that person wants to know about the dependent, that means the person has to investigate or meditate more on emptiness. More you put emphasis on practicing emptiness, then you have a hope to understand better how it's dependent. That's the I think a great picture to see, because for an example, His Holiness give this example a few times, which is very helpful, because saying if that person cannot stand up by his own, he is 100% rely on somebody to stand up. People might think, yes, he has, but that person himself, when he thinks, I cannot do it by my own, I'm so dependent on others, then more he feel like I cannot do it by my own, more he will start appreciating other people's help. That's there. That's the strength. So more you see the emptiness or the voidness, then it's much kind of about you appreciating, and it's a reality, not just to appreciate, but it's a reality. This is how you accept the reality, so that and then you can say, because it's emptiness, things can happen like this, and that becomes like you are you are promoted. I think you get the promotion before the going into the path, I think. So that actually really helps me. But then sometimes I feel like, well, if I have more kind of a stable mind towards this, then I will be like quite a stronger person, or I will be a better person to deal with the situation. Then I automatically just come like, now I need to look for shamatha. Now I need to have this focus, more stronger focus, more you have this awareness, the vigilance mind. Then I know the hope is already there. Yeah, so now I think we need to stop here, and then I think it's lunchtime, and then at 2:30 or 2:30 we are coming back. So I think you have a question, right? You okay. So lunch is now or now? Okay. So no problem. So once we come back, then you can ask the question. Okay. Short dedication. Jambe bayu jidara chenpa dang kundo sambo tenyang deshin de teda kunji jeso dalo che gewan de da tamje rado. You all know the difference between the dedication and prayer. That's really important. there are slightly difference between dedication and prayer. And dedication is something that you already have something to dedicate. You have earned this. You have this kind of you feel this kind of the virtue that you have created, the merit that you have built together. So that we are going to use like a fixed deposit, right? I will use this for only that purpose. So like we will talk more after the lunch, but it's saying this merit I will use only to get out from the suffering. Because we collected so much positive karma, which our mind is not strong, that only we can use this in the samsara, not to get out from the samsara. So that's why the dedication is like, I'm going to do this dedication as Manjushri and the Samantabhadra, how they have dedicated their life, their time, effort. So then this is how now Manjushri and Samantabhadra, where they are, and now I wanted to become like them, dedicate this. And the prayer, you can do lots of prayers, like may all the sentient beings become a Buddha. May the New York has like Buddhas everywhere, Bodhisattvas everywhere. You can do that. But the dedication is something that you have the substances, the dedication. Okay. So thank you very much. Okay.